Well, I think this could be possibly the last time I get to talk to you from this particular spot here in Ketohalli, Karnataka, southern India. Because as you know, after the weekend, after the Upekkhā, the full moon of October, I shall be moving on to not only a different location, a different country, a different location in a different country. I know not where. I go with no plans, no expectations. Trying not to compare what I find to the past or expect anything of the future. This is the purpose of Charaka, just wandering aimlessly with no particular place to go, by way of exploring not geographically, but exploring my mind, or we do this to explore our minds, to see how it now reacts, how it now responds to different circumstances, different conditions, different events that may occur, having been very settled for an entire 3 months. I think something like 90 days, 89 days of solitude, but with a little company. There's 3 novice monks here, and we had a kapya, but he ran away. And we have, but they don't speak much English, so I've been pretty much alone, able to just really sit and meditate and watch the mind. And in that 3 months, other than this correspondence, this communication, me to you, and then subsequently your response via your kind comments and questions that you post and emails that I receive, other than that, that is my only real external stimulation. Now you could say, well, it's hot, you have lots of bugs, you have lots of things to deal with, but I'm quite used to that, so that's nothing new. But what we do have to deal with as practitioners, all of us, is our own states of mind, the mental emotions that arise, our reactions to things, to disappointments, to excitement, to expectations, to comparison. And how we deal with those. Are we dealing with them equanimously, with equanimity, Upekkhā, the 4th of the 4 Brahma viharas? Are we still maintaining the other Brahma viharas, metta, loving kindness, compassion, karuna, and mudita, joy for others? Or are we losing our temper, getting angry, either with even not necessarily people or animals, but even inanimate objects? You know, you might stub your toe on a rock and curse and swear at the rock. What are you doing when you do this? It's a rock. It doesn't understand what you're saying. You're venting, you're expressing your anger, your internal emotion that's arisen out of the frustration from you yourself, causing you pain. Now, of course, this can happen also in relationships with people or animals. This morning, walking into the village, there's all the dogs have come to know me. They've never barked, they've been fine, but there's a couple that excite each other. I think they play one off against the other, and they're not always there, but when they are, they'll run across the road, and one bit, well, it did bite me, but it didn't bite me because it fortunately bit my bag that was hanging. It's the same colour as these robes. It was hanging over my shoulder. If the bag hadn't have been there, it would have taken quite a nasty bite out of me. Well, we try not to get angry, but this morning I thought, well, what I'll do is, I've tried with these 2 particular dogs just to not react and to walk on, and I keep my hands in the same position, and they do stop after a while, but I didn't want to get bitten again today, so and it was unavoidable to go in that direction. So as it came bounding along the road, I thought, well, I'll be nice and think thoughts of metta. And it didn't work. It went rah and went to bite me. So I just shouted back, it wasn't a reaction. I did it on purpose. I think this is the difference. Everything is about intention. So I didn't scream and shout at the dog out of reaction. The other day when it bit me, actually, I just went, ow, and walked more quickly. But this morning I purposely went, wah, at the dog like this. And it stopped and it ran away. And then I felt terrible for doing such a thing. But it worked. But it didn't come from a seat of anger. It came from a seat of kindness, actually, of metta, of loving kindness. Because let's say if it did bite me and cause me, damage, then who knows what the fate of this poor creature might be. Probably not a lot, but you can imagine the worst case scenarios. Or myself, we are in a country, I don't know what the score is these days with rabies, but I've certainly had no inoculations to such things. Anyway, it did go off of its own accord, and that I was kind of pleased about, but still felt bad about shouting or raising my voice in an angry sounding way, albeit it was a little bit forced because I was planning it and it wasn't out of reaction. But one can see over this time, over these 3 months, all of these what are seemingly small events, from one mosquito landing on you, taking its breakfast, its lunch or its dinner, finishing its breakfast, its lunch or its dinner and flying away, and you realising, there's no scratch, there's no itch, I'll leave them to do that in future. And then another mosquito 5 minutes later going into your ear and you're going, wah, crazy, because it's such a horrible thing when one goes in your ear or up your nose, even though it's not scratching or biting or taking its blood. It's the sound, it's the effect, it's the feeling, and how we react to these. And of course we're building these 4 Brahma viharas, we're developing these 4 Brahma viharas as qualities within ourselves through this practice to become not only better people externally for others, for other beings, but for our own enjoyment and happiness and contentment, peace and tranquility in this life, to become free from suffering in this lifetime. Now imagine if you had developed these qualities to such a full extent that you had full Upekkhā, equanimity, and the dog comes along bounding and barking and making its terrible noise with its friend, and it bites you, and you just walk on with this serene, tranquil frame of mind, unaffected, unruffled, calm. Now that is very difficult to attain to, those levels of equanimity, and quite an extreme example. But imagine if you were to do that, there would be then no feelings, maybe a little pain from the bite, maybe some ramifications as a result of the bite later on, but there would be mentally no turmoil, no regret, no concern. You've just carried on as normal. You've just floated on by. You've been bitten and you've carried on as normal. No mental reaction to the event that occurred. Far better than my shouting at the dog and then feeling guilty for having shouted at the dog, albeit when I rationalise it logically, it's the only thing to do. Some people, you'll see sadhus who carry sticks because of this, dogs or snakes or things like that, but I don't think it's appropriate, unless you need it to aid you for walking, to have a weapon in hand, a stick of this, even to threaten with it. I think it's inappropriate for a monk, especially at that time of day, which is the only time I really go out, which is normally alms round, which is when we're out to demonstrate to people the presence of monks in a particular place and the availability of the Sangha to offer dana to and practice generosity, and also to see as setting an example of through their practice of an alternative way of life. So these are all things that over the last 3 months I have continually been reflecting upon with little else to do. I had no projects in mind this time around for this Vasa, no learning, no studying, no particular aims other than to really just watch what is going on in this body and in this mind in a controlled environment, as opposed to continually moving around, which is normally what I'm doing. Of course, I did spend 7 months in one place previously, but this was living in a sangha, in a monastery with other monks, albeit only 2, but learning very much every day the way of practice of forest monks, and the very detailed and intricacies, the intricacies of the detail of their bylaws of each and every daily process of, I mean, literally everything you do is choreographed in a way, very beautifully so, but it takes a lot of thinking and continual mindfulness, but in a very directed and concentrated way, to ensure that you are learning, picking up the necessary skills to live in such an environment. I'm thinking the wind might be blowing this microphone a little. I don't think that will make much difference. So it was a different scenario, a different situation to this. This, I'm with my support and backing of my Indian Sangha here, where I ordained. So I have no concerns as to, I don't have to think about anything. I don't have to worry about anything. Just the slight little day-to-day problems, a bit of no water or no electricity, but these are just very, very trivial inconveniences, which are few and far between. So next will be very different. What's coming, I do not know. On the weekend, I will travel to the city. It's not very far. It's an hour and a half, couple of hours in a car driving. So I will get a car. I did stop halfway through this Vasa using the public transport, the buses, to go into the city, because it isn't appropriate for, they're very, very crowded. And I take my alms bowl and my robes with my sangati, and you're getting pushed and shoved around. So with some little but some money available, and it's not very expensive to get someone to order me an Uber, a car, a taxi, only a cheap version one, but to take me into the city. So I'll be going by car into the city. I'll go a day early, because Sunday, the following day, is what we call Pavarana. So I think they make more of a whole day's, a longer program of their normal Sunday program. Sorry, Sunday, not Monday, Sunday program than usual. And it's where monks go through this seeking forgiveness for anything we may have done through body, speech and mind during this rains period of our fellow monks that we've been living with. Well, that really won't be so much me, because I've been here alone, but of course my fellow bhikkhus back there, whom I do associate with, they come here occasionally, and I've gone there for the Uposatha days. So just recognising our that if we've done anything we feel inappropriate, that we appreciate that, and we make this determination not to do it again. So from there on, I will be going on the Monday morning. I'll stay there Saturday night and Sunday night and spend the whole day in the city monastery on Sunday. I'm already ready to go. I mean, there's nothing for me to get ready, practice or any pack or anything like that, because I don't have anything, you see. I just get on the aeroplane with my bowl, and all I own, everything I have to take with me, fits inside my alms bowl. So that just comes with me, my tickets and passport, and off I go. When I land, it'll be midday. I will have to try and get food on the way, but I will have breakfast. I will have one meal early at the monastery before I leave, so it won't be too much of a panic if I don't get a chance to have a meal before midday on my journey. But somebody may buy me something when I get there, if I'm there before noon, or maybe I'll get something on the plane. I don't know. I don't think about those sort of things. That's not important. But when I get there, I will head off in a kind of, south westerly direction, head towards the coast. I'm more familiar with coastal living than internal living in countries, small countries. I'm familiar with beach environments. They're much the same wherever you go in the world, and quite practical for living outside also. You can usually quite comfortably and happily and allowably sleep on a beach if you have nowhere else to sleep, and nobody really minds too much. Whereas in a city or in a village, it can be a little bit more difficult. So I shall head out towards the coast, and who knows, I'm sure between the airport and the coast, someone's bound to pick me up and say, "Oh, where are you going?" And some recommendations might be made, and we'll see what happens from there. So I'll look forward to giving you updates of that progress as it continues on that I will say adventure, because it will be a little bit of an adventure, being it's a new country to me, and although it's a Buddhist country, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be the same as my experiences, of which are many, in Thailand, which is a Buddhist country. I would imagine it will be different again, once again different. But it'll certainly be, I think, more conducive to my way of living and practice as a bhikkhu, as a Buddhist monk, than it is maybe here in India, which of course isn't any longer a Buddhist country. So that will be what happens. And then what I've practiced over this last 3 months of intensive meditation, day in, day out, 6 hours minimum really, to 9 hours and longer sometimes, of just sitting, watching the breath and developing states of samadhi. In all of this time I've had, trying to develop these qualities within my, qualities within of metta, karuna, mudita and upekkhā, but really working on this equanimity, because equanimity is one of the 7 factors of enlightenment also. The ability to really have focus and samadhi, develop samadhi or concentration, the ability to maintain mindfulness or sati, patience, tranquility. But equanimity is our reactiveness towards things, not a lack of reaction, not like one of these cows that just munches its grass whatever you do, and doesn't really bat an eyelid to whatever's going on around it. Not like that, not like the water buffalo scenario, but knowing with awareness what's going on, but not jumping to a reaction. So not screaming and shouting when the dog comes running, but mindfully observing your feelings, your emotions, as negative as they may be, and sticking to your routine, your plan, remaining as tranquil as it is possible to be. Bearing in mind that if you can do that, then the long-term effect is so much less, because you don't have the additional pain of emotional turmoil. You merely have the pain or annoyance of the event itself, not backed up, not rubbed in, not exaggerated by the reaction. So this is something that I can only know how far it's developed when I put these tools I've been working on. This has been a wonderful place to stay in terms of practice, being able to meditate in a protected environment with everything I need, albeit very simple. But it is only when I go out into the wide world, into samsara, into public transport, into cities, into villages, into beach and coastal areas. There will be tourist places, tourist areas I come across. There will be busy places. There will be very secluded and quiet places. There will be all of these different environments for me to experience as I move from one place to another, passing through, to observe how now I react, as opposed to prior to, say, this rains retreat, this particular period of my practice of meditation for 3 months, how now I react to before then, and also going back in time, because this is how and only how we can measure our progress on this path towards Nibbana, through looking back at how we might have reacted to a same set of circumstances or an event in the past, and comparing it to how we react now as a result of having practiced for so long. Now, the change might not be very much, but if there's any noticeable change, you know you're going in the right direction. If there is no noticeable change, then there needs to be some adjustments in your practice, because you're perhaps not really practicing quite as you should be to develop those qualities. And the qualities I'm talking about, to remind you just again, are, for as good identifiers to your progress, are metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, joy for others, and equanimity. You see, also metta, loving kindness, is the antidote, is so it's the opposite, so it's the antidote, it's the, what's the word? That'll do, antidote to anger, to hatred, to disliking. If you have this feeling of metta, of loving kindness towards someone, something, whatever they do, it's very hard to be angry at them, to dislike them, because you have this feeling of metta. If you don't, and somebody annoys you, it's quite easy to dislike them, even to say, oh, I hate you, or they're so annoying, I hate that person. We've all done that, especially in our youth or as children. Oh, I hate him, he did this, he did that. It's very easy to have those emotions arise through very little reason indeed. But if you're developing metta, that antidote, it's very difficult. And the same with compassion. When you have compassion for people, you don't hold them so responsible for what they might be doing. Someone might be quite an evil tyrant and waging war on neighbouring countries, or creating havoc in a business environment, or be an evil influence in some society. But if you can have compassion for the fact that it is not entirely their fault, but as a result of their ignorance, their delusion, one of these root defilements, greed, hatred, delusion, that we are all experiencing, we are all affected by it. We all have these defilements, just to different degrees. Someone with a high level of delusion or ignorance and a belief in their own self-importance might be quite a nasty person to be around. But if you have compassion for them, that it's only as a result of their ignorance, then you won't automatically have that reaction of hatred coming up. And similarly, the antidote to envy and jealousy of other people's success or achievements or acquisitions. Someone might be so rich and be doing so well, and you see it like that. If you can just be happy, and that is mudita, have joy for that person's success, then you will not have this feeling, very negative feeling of jealousy arising, which is a very destructive emotion to have within oneself. And one way of experiencing, knowing and understanding joy of others in its truth and its reality, and to be able to appreciate it, is to bring it back to the characteristics of existence. Like all of these things, when we know it's impermanent, because it is, success as opposed to success in relation to failure, fame in relation to whatever the opposite of fame is, infamous, health in relation to sickness, wealth in relation to poverty. We can all, on the turn of a coin, on the change of the wind, go in the opposite direction. So when we see someone whom is having a wonderful experience and all of the success in life, have joy for that person in the moment as it stands. as you might expect them to have of you when you are doing well, but also still interrelating that with compassion in the understanding that this is also impermanent and it may not last, but wish that it does for them, that they may continue in their success and good luck and good fortune. And only by this way, without that allowing that jealousy to arise, with that counteracting emotion of mudita, of joy for others' success, will you too experience the same as them, because you can share their joy. And this in turn will fuel the future causes and conditions for your own success. So it's all cyclical, because you are changing this state of mind of yours to a more positive way of being, both physically and emotionally, but also to change and affect the very outcome of your existence through your state of mind. So it's not manifesting by standing in front of the mirror saying, I will be successful, I will be successful, I am a good person, I am a good person, repeating by rote some fruitless words. It is actually developing real qualities within yourself, which are the causes and conditions for better and for your own good fortune, for your own happiness, for your own well-being and future success. And this in turn shows others that just through you developing these good qualities, you are a happier and a more content person. And what do they want? They want that also. All beings wish to be happy and content. And this way, by practicing in this way, you are sharing with others the benefits of your practice. This we call sharing of merits, if you like. And sometimes this is done in a wordy kind of rote way of repeating various chants that we have in the aspect of sharing of merits. But in the real truth of this practice, of what we're doing, you are sharing your merits by the very development of good qualities within yourself, because others around you benefit. Like most of the dogs here don't have to trouble themselves barking at me and trying to bite me, because I'm trying to develop metta and harmlessness. They have no fear of me. They see, oh, there's that old monk coming along, he's okay, we don't need to bite him. I'm hoping that now, although I had no cruel intentions by shouting at the dog this morning, I'm hoping it understood that, because they have perhaps a better understanding of people's minds than some of us humans do with each other, because creatures are more simplified. And I think the dog probably realized I offered no real threat or anger, because there was none behind it, but I was just proving a point that I could shout as loud as the dog could, and that way he was happy to back down and say, oh yes, I see, you can shout too as I can bark. So these are qualities we develop, and this is sharing of merits. Punya, we call that here in India, the Pali word, punya. In Thailand it's boon, I think. And this is merits, that means, and we share those with everybody else, because this is another form of dana, another form of generosity, another form of giving. Like keeping these 5 precepts, no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or taking of intoxicants, is one of the greatest forms and gifts of giving we can offer, because we are offering the gift of fearlessness to all beings by keeping these precepts. So this practice, what is it? What is Buddhism? Like I'm going to test the novice monk again tomorrow or the next day before I leave, I keep asking him, what is it? Well, it's very simple, the practice of Buddhism. It's sila, and I just go like that, 5 precepts, no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying or intoxicants. So it's sila, it's samadhi, panya. So precepts, meditation, wisdom. Just my 3 little hand signals to just remind myself and others what Buddhism is. It's nothing complicated. It isn't the Tritipika, it isn't the Vinaya, the Sutta Pitaka, the Abhidharma. It isn't the entire Dhammapada. It isn't the Encyclopedia Britannica or quantum physics, chemistry, biology, or anything complicated at all. It is simply the practice of moral virtue, meditation, and wisdom. And by wisdom, I simply mean developing wholesome mind states, reducing wholesome mind states, which will come about naturally as a result of keeping sila, as a result of practicing meditation. You will reduce the unwholesome mind states and develop the wholesome mind states of those 4 Brahma viharas of metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkhā. And this is the practice. We understand then through our wisdom we have developed, we start to see clearly, and through our practice of meditation, like in this few months I've had here, so clearly do I see the passage of time, not from a clock, not from a diary, not from a calendar, but from the moon as it's gone through its waxing, growing and becoming the quarter moon, as it's just passed through now, the half, in towards the end of this week as it approaches and becomes the full, bright, 100% shining moon of the Uposatha in October, being the end of this Vasa, this 3 months rains retreat. But then it will start to wane, reducing to the half moon. So when I'm in the next place, wherever I end up, will be down to the half moon, down to the dark moon of no light that's still there, but we cannot see it with our naked eyes because the sun isn't shining on it, what we call the new moon, the black moon. A 15-day period between the new moon and the full moon, and we're back to the big bright shining moon again. And this cycle every 30 days repeats itself. And I see this so clearly with no other duties or responsibilities for me to concern myself about, because that is my calendar. And each day as the sun rises somewhere over there, when it's a little bit too bright to sit here and talk, so I've waited until later this morning, so it's now above, which means it's approaching now late morning, when it will be time for me to have my one meal. Very simple. And this evening, when the sun sets over there in the west behind me, I'll know that it's evening time for evening puja, time for my meditation, time to settle down for the night and the night's practice again. Very simple, but so very easy in that simple situation to really observe in reality all of those emotions that are arising, because they are not simple. They continue at the same pace to when you left off. When you go on a retreat, you'll know this. When you enter the retreat time, when you enter the location, everything you were doing up to then doesn't just stop. It continues in your mind, like with momentum. And it possibly doesn't even slow down until it's nearly time to leave, when you find, towards the end of this practice is the best time, because everything's slowed down. And also you're now starting to look forward and into the future again as to what next. Now this practice of developing equanimity is to get rid of that what next, not to be concerned about what's next, but to deal with what's happening right here and now in this moment. So we can do this as monks. You can also do this at home in every opportunity you have to meditate. It doesn't take 3 months, it doesn't take 3 days, it doesn't really even take 3 minutes. If you can have 3 seconds observing one breath and really seeing the nature of its impermanence, that as you've breathed in, for all the pleasure and delight you have from oxygenating your body and inhaling that nice air, cooling, refreshing, quenching air, as soon as you've done that, the experience is gone, it's over. The need to exhale has replaced it. Followed again by breathing in. So you don't have to wait 15 days for a moon to come and a moon to go. In each and every breath, anicca, impermanence, is there, and also a reminder of its unpredictability, uncertainness, because we can only know as far as our breath, because we don't know ultimate fate, our end. We don't have an expiry date. We just expire. We die. This body may get old, it may get sick, it will eventually, for certain, die. But we don't know when that will be, how that will be. Whether you'll get old, whether you'll get sick. People do just die. In this retreat I've known 4 people, I know I repeat that quite often, so apologies for that, of my age who have just died with no expectation of that, no illness, no fit people, 1 older than me, 3 younger than me. And this wasn't expected, certainly not by them or others. So we must be always aware of this. And then when this happens, we are more equanimous about this happening. And with equanimity, with that factor of enlightenment, one of the 7 factors of enlightenment, equanimity, Upekkhā, it's also one of the 10 parami, and it's also one of the Brahma viharas. All of these lists interrelate, but equanimity, Upekkhā, is very prominent in them all, because it is so important. Once we've developed that in degrees, because it doesn't just turn on from a nil state, we develop it. It develops. We become more equanimous gradually. And once we see the progression, we see how more equanimous we have become through our practice by looking back and measuring our reactions now as compared to previously in the past, then we are encouraged to continue with our practice. And it has a snowballing effect of giving us encouragement to practice more, developing more equanimity, and so on, ultimately becoming equanimous, tranquil, passaddhi, tranquility, having peace and calmness of mind in all circumstances. So this is what I will be, with the company of yourselves, putting to the test over the next few weeks, possibly few months, even possibly few years, who knows. As long as I'm lucky enough to stay alive in this body, I will be practicing wherever I end up, wherever I go. For the foreseeable future, it's Sri Lanka, which is coming next. I'll be talking to you again tomorrow, but that'll probably be early in the morning, so it'll be from in Kuti again. But I hope I've said something of interest today that you might be able to use, in which case please use it, put it into practice. If not, don't worry about it and just let it go. Thank you for watching. Now I can leave these termites to finish off this woodenish platform thing. They're completely surrounding me. They haven't gone on this cloth, so this I should have thought of earlier on. Anyway, there we go. It's been a nice spot to talk to you.